a screen. Her smile, it shines so bright. She's a queen with every scene. In the morning or the night, recipes and good vibes flow. Every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. With every like and every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong, she can't bear. She's setting us all free. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Recipes and good vibes flow. Every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. With every like and every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong, she can't bear. She's setting us all free. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong.
Battles got power, Florabella stands tall. Every drip, every drop, watch the haters fall. Channel sharp as thorns, ain't taking no mess. Scroll through her feet, feel that queen's finesse. Vines tangle tight, but Flora breaks free. Roots so deep, can't mess with her tree. From the mud she rises, roses from the dirt. Every comment section she lays down hurt. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless. From the garden green to the concrete wall, Florabella, unstoppable nature's child. Leaves whisper secrets, she's the loudest shout. From the channel buzzing, she never backs out. Seed of strength, through seasons she grows. In the face of doubt, her spirit glows. Cameras ain't a limit, she branches out. Thorns in her crown, she wears it no doubt. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless.
All right, everybody, what is going on this evening? What's going on? We're about to get into the show. I hope everyone is having a lovely evening. But we're going to get into the show tonight. And the show tonight is on one of the topics that I've been wanting to talk about for a while now, right? Especially based on all of the body cam that we've been regularly seeing out there, all the stories that are coming out, right? There's a lot of crime in schools, right? Teachers committing very foul, rancid acts. All right, and so we're going to cover a bunch of those. So I do want to give everyone a trigger warning. The subject that we're going to be talking about tonight is not necessarily the most gentile. All right, there's a lot of creepy teachers, and the genders will surprise you. Right, I am seeing a lot of coverage of this lately. So is this new, or is this a pattern that's kind of been in schools for quite a while now, right? I think they've definitely been a pattern in schools for a very long time, right? But I think right now things are getting a big limelight, which is very important, right? Hopefully, this means things are going to change, that these people are going to be eradicated from the schools a lot quicker than they have been, and that they're going to face serious charges. That's the hope now. All right, so we're going to get into a bunch of different stories tonight. So if you're here for the crime and enjoying, please feel free to hit the like button, share, subscribe. Hey, what is going on, Auntie? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your comment there at first. What's going on? You definitely can send one. It's in the corner there, but because this is vertical, it's a little weird. So, but thank you very much for thinking of me. All right, we're going to get right into the show. So let's start this first case with a very, very disturbing case, right? So just give it a few minutes. We got to get about a certain amount of minutes into the video
A New York
before we can start having
a Kentucky elementary school teacher
these sort of conversations on YouTube due to censorship. So give it a few more minutes or a couple seconds, then we're going to get right into this subject. I think the video is a little grainy, but this first story is about a teacher who's accused of doing something despicable. All right, let's get into it.
and middle school soccer coach is accused of sexually abusing a 10-year-old girl inside a school bathroom. The girl, who's now a teenager, came forward to reveal what she says allegedly happened to her. But now, on top of being on leave and banned from school property, he faces a very serious charge, but we are going to break down what exactly the evidence may show. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. 40-year-old Charles Charlie Hamilton is under arrest in Madison County, Kentucky. And I will tell you, if these allegations are true, he could be looking at prison time for a significant amount of time. This alleged victim, just 10 years old back during the 2018-2019 school year, and that time period is important, recently came forward to claim that Hamilton touched her inappropriately inside a school bathroom during a power outage. I want to break down this case. I want to welcome back on prosecutor, former Ohio Deputy Attorney General Mark Weaver. Mark, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Talk to me about the challenges of bringing a case years after the alleged crime when somebody only...
So let's pause it there. All right, very, very despicable situation. Right. First of all, the idea that somebody would take a moment like a power outage to use that to abuse a child is very, very disturbing. Right. But unfortunately for these predators, we know that it's about opportunity. Right. So they might have motive, they might have a desire, but they never really have access. And so this could have been this predator's moment to prey on this young girl. Very, very disturbing. 10 years old. Imagine there's a power outage, and that's a moment that someone takes to try and harass you. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the super chat. Thank you so much, Auntie. He said, "Sup, Flo." Shout out to Flo for calling out these crazy teachers that are turning out our babies. Listen, this is a very, very touchy subject, right? People always get very disturbed to talk about this. But the amount of cases that I have seen just in the last, like all of these cases are from the last few days. These are not old cases that are like deep in. A lot of these cases are very new. And the fact that there's so many right now, I don't know if it's because we have more accountability and we have more eyes on the children that these things are being discovered, and like kids know they can reach out to somebody. I don't know what it is, but I'm seeing so much of it, and it needs to be talked about. So thank you for your super chat. Yeah, this poor child, like imagine being in that situation. There's a power outage, you're scared. There's no electricity or whatever the case may be. You think somebody's coming to help you, and that person is a predator, right? They're taking their opportunity as a predator because that's what they do, right? They might have the want and the desire, but they will never act until they have that moment and that opportunity to do so. and this is what he did in this case. What's going on, 40 Boom? Long time no see. What is going on? All right, let's continue.
It comes forward so many years later. I mean, doesn't negate that this happened, but it can complicate a case. It can make it a little bit challenging, right?
Sure. Two things viewers should know. One, statutes of limitations for child sex cases are usually very long, in many cases 15, 20, 25 years. Secondly, those statutes typically don't start running until the child turns 18. And so there's plenty of...
So that's a very important part of the law that protects children, right? Is the statute of limitations, meaning that there is no short period like a lot of crimes that are committed against adults for reporting and for prosecution, right? There's a very large window here. So I don't know. I think there was another one like this where the girl is a little bit older after like some time has passed since it happened, and so there's a huge window for kids to get sort of justice for this type of situation. So it's really good. It's not like that across all states, right? So it's good that in this case the statute is like 25 years. But I do think for most that involve a child, especially a child under 12, it's a pretty large statute of limitations, meaning there's a long period where it can still be reported. All right, let's continue.
Time legally to bring the case. But you raise an interesting point. Witnesses may have left and moved on somewhere else. People who were at that school at that time who knew about the power outage, maybe they moved to another state, not available. Digital records of what might have happened, if there's any email traffic, texting, social media at the time, that's largely gone. This may very well come down to the classic he said, she said, and defense lawyers can take advantage of that issue.
Now, my understanding is in Kentucky, there's no statute of limitations, even on felonies, and I think he's charged with first-degree sexual abuse, which is a felony, so that's a good point. I will say this, Kentucky news outlet Lex 18, they got their hands on this warrant that was filed against Hamilton. It provides a little bit more information. I want to get into it. So according to their reporting, this alleged victim, who's now 17 years old, she reportedly told her therapist that a teacher touched her inappropriately when she was just 10 during the 2018-2019 school year. That therapist reported the allegations to the Department of Community-Based Services. It's part of the Cabinet for Families and Children. And the teen met with DCBS, explained what happened.
And shout out to the teacher. Shout out to that therapist for being a good mandated reporter. Right? A lot of the times, people will sit on this information, especially school counselors. Right? So it's very good that she had a therapist, excuse me, that understood her role as a mandated reporter. Right? Teachers, therapists, counselors, all these people have a duty to report. So I'm glad people stepped in her case. Let's continue.
Mark, explain to me how that works. Is a therapist...
Now, one part that is a little disturbing that, they mentioned there in the beginning was that because of the fact that there isn't a lot of evidence, that this will come down to a he said, she said situation. But again, why would a child go to their therapist and just make that up out of nowhere? A lot of times that's just not the case. But again, it will be hard to prove, right? It will be hard to kind of say, hey, this is for sure what happened. It will be her word against his. And again, this is what these predators understand. They understand that they can manipulate the situation, that they can, that there's no accountability and things like that. But I'm wondering, what type of surveillance there is. I mean, they mentioned that a lot of it might be gone already. But does the school hold on to surveillance footage from years ago, right? What duty do they have to document or to keep documentation of like school interactions and records? I don't know. I don't know if they even have to. I think it largely will depend on the school and how deep the police's investigation is going to go.
A mandatory reporter? Isn't there some sort of confidentiality what is told to the therapist? How does that work exactly?
Although I don't practice in Kentucky, in most states, there is a protection for things you tell your therapist. But when it comes to certain criminal offenses, particularly child sex offenses, states will allow that to be revealed. And people who work with children do tend to be mandatory reporters. Having said that, without respect to knowing what this case might be, that could be the motion, a suppression motion could be filed in this case where the defense counsel would seek to exclude that under some argument along the lines of that it should not have been revealed.
Right. Okay, so according to the arrest warrant, Boonesboro Elementary School in Richmond was dealing with a power outage one day. And this is when this 10-year-old girl had apparently asked Hamilton to go with her to the bathroom. She said she was scared of the dark, didn't want to go alone. However, according to the Lexington Herald-Leader, the student didn't want Hamilton to actually come into the bathroom with her, but he allegedly did. Now, the girl reportedly told authorities that when she'd finished up in the bathroom stall, and that is when she says that he allegedly touched her genitals. Hamilton's other hand was allegedly wrapped around the child's waist and back. Lex 18 reports the warrant reads, when she left the stall, Hamilton then reached down and touched her over her clothes and asked her if this was okay. Now, Mark, obviously, a disturbing allegation. The complication, let's go back to this one more time. How do investigators actually corroborate that? How do they prove an allegation like that? You know, even aside from, 6 or 7 years ago, but the circumstances of this interaction, you wonder if a defense attorney is going to say, is this being misinterpreted? Is this being exaggerated? Did this actually happen the way that she said? It may very well have. And if that's the case, then you could understand why this charge is being pursued. But at the same time, you do wonder, how can they corroborate this?
Corroboration will be the heart of this case. The first thing investigators will do is to check employment records to see that this teacher was in fact working on that day, and attendance records that in fact this child was in school on that day, and then power records, going to the power plant company to confirm that there was a power outage at the same time on that same day. Absent one of those three, the defense can get a verdict of acquittal without even getting into the credibility of this child, now a teenager. If those three things are all there, now it's going to come back to the he said, she said, and now this is the very uncomfortable time when our system permits the criminal defense lawyer to cross-examine this victim in a very aggressive fashion, usually not in a way to bully her because the jury wouldn't like that, but in a way that might make it seem as though she's confused. I have prosecuted child rape cases. I have seen criminal defense lawyers do exactly that. Any little moment of daylight where they can suggest that maybe her credibility is not worth relying on, they will take advantage of.
And particularly,
And that's interesting. I wonder how this is going to progress, because they are going to have to verify that information. Was there an outage, right? Because that would be the only way that he would even have the opportunity to be into this interaction with her, right? Was he at work that day, right? Was he, in fact, that in some capacity her teacher, to where it would be normal for him to be in this moment with her where he takes her to the bathroom or whatever, right? Teachers are entrusted with their students, especially elementary students, right? They spend the whole day with that teacher for the most part, right? Bathroom, snack time, all that with one teacher. So he would have the trust of this girl, and he would have the access that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily question, right? That's your teacher. Why wouldn't they walk you to the bathroom? But again, it will be very hard to prove without that information. He's very correct there. This will be rough. That isn't a good spot to be in. Yeah, absolutely. It's just not for her. And it sounds like they said this was about 7 years ago. So she's probably in high school now. She's probably a lot older. So again, it's not the same as when you have the younger victim, where you will have the jury on your side a lot of the times and things like that. Now you have a child who's a grown teenager, like a teenager to a lot of people in their eyes, and they will view her that way when they're trying to decide his credibility. So yeah, it will be a little difficult. So I'm curious to see how this plays out, especially if they're able to verify that information. I mean, he's obviously, I think he's out of his position, they said, but let's continue.
and this is not judging the situation. Sam, a Kentucky elementary school, more information, I want to get into it. So a school in Richmond was dealing with a power down and touched her over her clothes. Defense attorney is going to say, is this being misinterpreted? Is this being exaggerated? Did this actually happen the way that she said? It may very well have. And if that's the case, then you could understand why this charge is being pursued. But at the same time, you do wonder, how can they corroborate this?
Corroboration will be the heart of this case. The first thing investigators will do is to check employment records to see that this teacher was in fact working on that day, and attendance records that in fact this child was in school on that day, and then power records, going to the power plant company to confirm that there was a power outage at the same time on that same day. Absent one of those three, the defense can get a verdict of acquittal without even getting into the credibility of this child, now a teenager. If those three things are all there, now it's going to come back to the he said, she said, and now this is the very uncomfortable time when our system permits the criminal defense lawyer to cross-examine this victim in a very aggressive fashion, usually not in a way to bully.
Yeah, and exactly. He will, the defense attorney will have a lot of access to question her, to berate her. So this will be a difficult case, especially for her and the age that she's at now. So
her because the jury wouldn't like that, but in a way that might make it seem as though she's confused. I have prosecuted child rape cases. I have seen criminal defense lawyers do exactly that. Any little moment of daylight where they can suggest that maybe her credibility is not worth relying on, they will take advantage of.
And particularly, and this is not judging the situation, it is not putting blame on anything, but if she admitted that she gave him a hug, that could be a complicating factor. Now, one thing can be true and one thing can also be true, right? The allegation could be, yes, I gave him a hug, but then he took it to the other level, and that could 100% be true. But when you are talking about beyond a reasonable doubt, obviously there can be complications here. But let me tell you what happened here. So as this investigation got underway, Madison County...
What are you talking about? Jesse, that was like a random thing to fucking insert there. If she gave him a hug. What the hell what sense would it make for an adult male to be hugging a child after she used the bathroom? Like, some of these people, when they cover this stuff, like, their weird biases slip in there. There's no blaming her in this situation. I don't get what he's trying to say with that. That was a little weird. Let's continue.
Schools, they placed Hamilton on leave. And according to posts on the elementary school's Facebook page, he had taught third grade. His Facebook page, as well as a page for the elementary school, show him surrounded by students in classrooms, at sports events. Fox 56 reports that Hamilton voluntarily surrendered to authorities on October 13th. He was charged with first-degree sexual abuse of a victim under the age of 12. Mark, if this is true, right, what are the benefits of turning yourself over, not fighting this, complying? Would it suggest that he is ready to take this to trial, that he believes he didn't do anything wrong, that this is a misunderstanding? Or does this just, even if he were guilty of this, even if the evidence were strong, this is advisable to do in a situation like this?
He may want to take that form of a plea, but the prosecutor also has to look for digital evidence of other instances of this man being attracted to children. We don't currently have evidence that he was looking or collecting child porn, or that he acted out against any other student, or I think he was a girls' soccer coach, any other player. But that's the sort of thing investigators and prosecutors are looking for now. The more they can build their case out and potentially supersede this indictment with additional charges, the better leverage the prosecution has to get this defendant to plead guilty.
By the way, you know why we're able to really do a deep dive on a story like this? It's not only because of the amazing support that we get from everyone out there. Thank you so much. Because all the time, the one claim our school district found out about said. Now, Madison County Schools says that Hamilton was placed on leave on September 8th, so that is the same day that the district found out about the investigation from DCBS. Lex 18 reports that the warrant states Hamilton is banned from all school property in Madison County, can't have any contact with his alleged victim. A statement from Madison to Lex 18 said the district was notified of the beginning of the investigation by DCBS. No information about the investigation was given, including the nature of the investigation, until yesterday. When we were notified he was being charged, we received no additional information. The communication families received from the school indicated Mr. Hamilton would be out of the building and gave information about reassigning students for the time being. They added Mr. Hamilton has remained on leave since September 8th and has not returned to his teaching or coaching duties. The district will continue to cooperate fully with the investigation. And Hamilton wasn't just a teacher, he was also, as you just heard, a soccer coach at a nearby middle school. A Facebook post from B. Michael Caudle Middle School in April of 2023 announced Hamilton as the the new girls' soccer coach. And back in 2022, Burnsboro Elementary posted an educator spotlight of Hamilton on its Facebook page. It said, quote, "This is my 13th year in education, and I've been at Boonsboro since the doors opened. I've taught 5th and 3rd grade here at BES. My pull toward teaching came while I was in college working with an after-school program through the YMCA. I love the idea of being able to help a student become the best version of themselves both inside and outside the classroom. I'm very thankful for my team at BES who make showing up every day seem easy." Outside of Boonsboro, I'm very passionate about soccer and all sports. I have coached soccer the past several years and absolutely love the game. This love has recently turned into my very own podcast with the hopes of building a brand around the game. Now, Hamilton was given a $50,000 bond. It's unclear if he's been released from pretrial detention. He has an arraignment that's scheduled for Monday, October 20th. Mark, what is...
Here's the thing. So I definitely understand them like theorizing and all that, but I think for the most part, if he's under arrest, I think they feel like they have a decent case. So I'm curious to see what evidence they have, right? What information they've already confirmed. I mean, it's interesting that they will have these conversations and theorize, but in order for them to have arraigned him and gotten a jury to put charges on him and all that, yeah, some people think it's a walk in the park, it's a rubber stamp, but at the end of the day, they have some sort of case built against him already, right? This is not a matter of them working backwards and trying to build a case. Now there is already a case built. So I'm curious to see what information they have in this case. Now let's move on to the next case. Certainly, this is not the most well. This is one of the most disturbing ones, but there are a few more disturbing ones. All right, this one is about a high school cheer coach. All right, let me put this on. Sorry, guys, I thought I shared my screen already. But this one is about a high school cheer coach who had a shocking relationship that nobody knew about.
Woman who appeared to have it all: the dream job, the college sweetheart, and a beautiful family. But a grand jury says she risked all of that to have sex with a male student. I go over the ugly truth of the allegations against this high school teacher.
It's crazy because look how normal she looks, right? Got a husband, kids, family, a life, right? Who would think this, right? Who would think she would make a choice like this?
Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Sadly, we cover a lot of female teachers on this show accused of having sex with students. And this case, it takes us to Alabama. Now, from the outside, the life of 32-year-old Michaela Caldwell Hodgins, it looked picture perfect. But all of it seems to have come crashing down when a grand jury indicted her for allegedly having sex with a male student. Now, each time we cover one of these, I can't help myself but wonder, what drives a woman to risk it all for an inappropriate relationship, allegedly? Now, these are, after all, allegations, and Hodgins is innocent until proven guilty. Randolph County, this is a small place. Less than 22,000 people live there. In Wagawi, the city where this happened, the population is 751. The county sits on the Alabama-Georgia line. Now, this is probably the kind of place where a lot of people know each other. They may go to the same grocery store or the same church on Sunday. Here's what we know about Michaela Hodgins. In March of 2022, Randolph County High School posted on Facebook, "We would like to welcome Mrs. Michaela Hodgins into her new role as RCHS cheer coach for the upcoming season. Mrs. Hodgins grew up here in Randolph County and was a cheerleader for 6 years at Woodland. She served as captain her senior year. She is an alumna of the University of West Alabama, where she cheered on a scholarship."
Lord. Oh, Lord. It's giving never grew up, right? She was the cheer captain. This is her town. She hasn't left her town. Yeah, it's giving this is someone who's stuck in their 14 or 16-year-old mind where that's when they peaked, right? That's when their life was the best for them. Maybe they're stuck in that. That's what it's giving, you know? Um, my stomach. I hope they have evidence this time. You know what I noticed with these cases with the males and the teachers? There is a lot of digital evidence. Like one of the ones that we're gonna talk about, you guys are gonna see they have like pictures, explicit messages, like literally the boys can break down the days that they were with these women, explicit pictures from the women. I mean, it's very shocking, a lot of these ones here. So I mean, it's the ones with the boys, it's very explicitly this is what's happening. These are straight up predators, right? And she happens to be one of those. So let's get into this.
From 2011 to 2013, she will graduate with her master's in education from UWA in May.
Hey, Big Cap, what is going on, Conchanery? Thank you all for joining the show. Let's get into this one here.
She has been involved in many aspects of coaching cheer for the past 10 years through judging tryouts, conducting cheer camps, and choreographing routines. She is married to her college sweetheart, and they have 2 beautiful children. Mrs. Hodgins is super excited to build upon this cheer program and to be a part of the RCHS athletic family. Now you can tell just how excited the school was to welcome Hodgins, a hometown girl, to the community and to the school back in 2022. But following her arrest, the tone has certainly changed, and it sounds like the charges weren't a complete shock to the superintendent. John Jacobs released a statement following her indictment, writing, Ms. Hodgins began working for Randolph County School System on August 2nd, 2021. Her last day in the classroom was November 15th, 2024. We will cooperate with local authorities as requested. So right there, it's been nearly 11 months since Michaela Hodgins was in a classroom at the school. So it sounds like they knew about this investigation, or at least an allegation of improper.
Well, you know what? At least it's good that they put her out of the classroom in November. But why so long to take, like, why so long for charges to come up? That's my issue. You know, maybe the police were compiling their case, but sheesh.
For conduct and removed her. This is Michaela's hometown. As I mentioned before, she grew up in Randolph County, so she's familiar with the area and the nearby high schools. She attended the University of West Alabama on that cheer scholarship and graduated in May of 2022 with a master's in education. Then right out of school, she got hired at Randolph County High School as the cheer coach. Michaela married her college sweetheart, and they do have those 2 children together. So to discuss this case, I want to bring in Erica Thomas. She's an investigative reporter and also the editor at large of 1819 News. Erica, thank you so much for joining me. This is a pretty disturbing case. Everything I'm looking at on Facebook and everything, it looks like the school was pretty excited to have Michaela Hodgins come on board. I mean, they had this glowing Facebook post, and now we've got this. We've got a grand jury indictment for a charge accusing her of having sex with a male student. So tell us what you know, what you've been able to find out about this.
Yeah, so I've talked to Superintendent John Jacobs. I've talked to investigators that worked the case. And the interesting thing about this case was the teacher was not removed from the classroom until, all this information started coming out in town, so to speak. And she finally did, she did leave the school. She's no longer with the school, but she was not arrested until after the indictment. So in this case, they did the investigation, presented their evidence to the grand jury, and they came back with this indictment. And a lot of people in town weren't very shocked. This is a very small town. The name of the town is Wedowee, Alabama. Very, very small town in East Alabama, really close to the Georgia line. Everyone knows everyone here if they're not related to each other. It's a great town, but this is definitely leaving a black eye in Wedowee.
I was going to ask you about that because I looked up the population of the county and it was like a little more than 21,000. And I'm like, this is a small place. Yes. And so everybody knows everybody, I'm assuming, and then the town itself where the school is located is pretty small too.
And, shout out to that town for getting this little predator out of there. Honestly, for being so small and like having the conversations and spreading that and making sure that her conduct is reported. A lot of schools, what they'll do is they'll wash their hands of these people and just, tell them to leave or tell them like administrative leave. You know what I'm saying? Like it won't be as official as like, hey, we're going to stop you from coming to school and we're going to forward this to police so they can press charges. This is a very good job on the town and the school's part. Also, I think it's funny that she said if they're not related. Lord, that was an Alabama joke. Let's continue.
So somebody says something and it's going to spread around pretty quickly. So
Yes.
when did word of this rumored relationship start spreading around the small town like wildfire?
Well, definitely a couple of months ago. And there's an interesting part of this. I graduated from Randolph County High School. I graduated from where this happened. I now live 7 hours away, but I heard about this because people knew that I was a reporter and that this is something that I've covered. I've covered so many of these cases. And let's talk about that too. How disturbing is it that this is not even that shocking of news? It's handled differently because the suspect in this case is a female. And I think that's something that's interesting to look at.
Well, you are preaching to the choir here because we have covered so many cases here on Crime Fix and here at Law and Crime where we have female teachers. You know, females, women, we're supposed to be maternal and we're supposed to be, you know, taking care of the kids and we're supposed to have that instinct, right? We're supposed to be attracted to men.
Yeah, when women start using their brains and understanding that a woman can only be a product of her environment, so she comes from trauma and strife, she's gonna keep putting forward trauma and strife, and that's what's happening with these disgusting, delusional women that are having relationships with these children, essentially, right? Is that they're just continuing a nasty cycle, right? Something that's happened to them that they've observed. That's how this type of abuse continues and continues, right? Whether they were touched or had an inappropriate relationship with an educator, right? Or they know someone, or they know of an educator who does that or has these type of relationships with young people. It's one of those things that people have tended to in the past, especially based on gender, sweep under the rug. Oh, he had a relationship with a teacher. That's not a bad thing. He's lucky. Good for him, type of thing. How men have those mentalities. But this is still an inappropriate relationship, right? A grown woman with a husband and children having intercourse with a high schooler, right? What is that doing to that young person? So let's continue.
Not boys. And so this is an allegation, of course. She is innocent until proven guilty.
Definitely.
But we have covered this in depth. And I personally, as somebody who worked as a substitute teacher years and years ago, when I first graduated from college, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't see it. I don't understand it. My mind is not can't go there even when I was like,
And you're not meant to, right? Just like nobody tries to sit around and understand why men like little girls or children, right? There's no understanding or rationalizing with it. It's a weird disturbance. It's an issue that people have. It's a sickness, right? So trying to understand it is not necessary, right? It's just a nasty thing. And the sooner that we understand how deviant this type of thing is and address it and get rid of it, the better. Right? People have to understand that it's a sickness that people have and deal with it accordingly. These things cannot go unchecked. And that's the problem. A lot of times people don't believe that this is something that people have, but there are people with this sickness. And they go around and they act on it, or they might never act on it. And then one day when they're grown, they have an impulse and something like this happens.
a younger person and I was in these classrooms, I was like, yeah, they're like 6 years younger than me, but they're kids. Like they're kids. Like, you know, like they're children. You're in a role where you have authority over them. So you are preaching to the choir here. So let's talk a little bit about you went to this high school. People start reaching out to you and you are like at my alma mater, at my old
Not really.
school.
I mean, these days in this business, it's just not surprising at all. Like I said, the only surprising part of this is that this was a cheer coach. She's married. She has 2 children. She's a female doing this allegedly with a male student. And I do believe he was 18 years old. So if not the fact that she was a teacher, who knows if she would have even been charged. But We have to always keep saying innocent until proven guilty. And I am shocked at the amount of support I've seen for this teacher. If this was a male teacher, we wouldn't be seeing this. I have gotten some hateful emails for even doing the story, for even
Oh,
highlighting this.
wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's a twist. Huh? 18-year-old student. That's still disturbing. Like they said, you're in a role over these students. You're in a position of authority. It's still misconduct. And I think it's weird again that this grown woman with a child herself would be in a school doing something foul like that. I don't care if that student is 17. I don't care if that student is 19. It's still inappropriate because why would you want to do that?
And that's very rare for me to get an email supporting someone that's charged with anything. You know, a lot of society likes to say guilty until proven innocent, really, even though we know it's innocent until proven guilty. In our minds, we always seem to kind of convict people just when we see that mugshot. But in this case, that has not been it in Wedowee, Alabama. There has been so much support for her. And I believe this also goes back to women are naturally nurturers. We're naturally those who take care of people. So when we see someone accused of doing absolutely the opposite of that, there's some sense of cognitive dissonance that goes into our perception and what we want to believe.
Okay, so let's go back to what you said. You said there's a lot of support. People are emailing you to support Michaela Hodgins. And on some level, I understand that, but you're
Wow.
telling me, and we're
That is very creepy. I think it's weird that people would be emailing in support because, again, it's misconduct nonetheless, right? Now, I do think that throws a monkey wrench in it that he was 18. It's still weird. It's still misconduct as a teacher, right? I still don't think it would be appropriate for a teacher to be having a relationship with a student, whether he's 18 or not. It just goes to show one that she would be willing to do that in a school setting, right? Whether a student is 18 or not. And two, she likely has done this before. Who's to say that she hasn't had already an inappropriate relationship with a student, right? Whether they're 18 or 17 or 16, right? Maybe in this case this is not a child who's underage, but it's still a child nonetheless. It doesn't really change anything. I still don't see why somebody would be calling the school district on her behalf. Even if he is 18, I have a problem with older men going after 18-year-old young ladies. Exactly. And she's still in a position of authority. Regardless of their age dynamics, she's a teacher. He's a student, right? That's still an unhealthy dynamic. Trust me, I definitely get it. It's creepy nonetheless. And I think it's interesting that she has this position because she's like, I don't get why anybody would be advocating for somebody who would have a sexual relationship with a child. She does understand the gender dynamics in it as well. Let's continue.
learning some new information here. The student is 18 years old, so he's technically an adult. However, that doesn't matter under the law because you're still in a position of authority. You're in a school setting. So what are these emails of support saying that you are receiving?
The emails are saying, this is innocent until proven guilty. You shouldn't be saying this. You have this all wrong. He's 18. He shouldn't be charged, or she shouldn't be charged. And so the people, who know her, they really did. She was a beloved member of that community. A lot of kids looked up to her. She was a cheerleader when she was in college, and then she came to Randolph County. And like you said at the beginning of this, they were just really proud to have her. They were really excited to have her. And it is hard to, really break down for people like this is still a crime. I mean, it's been difficult. I've had to respond very kindly, thank you for reading. I'm sorry this is happening in your town. My parents still live there, so I get it. I don't want anything bad to happen in my town either, but unfortunately, it looks like it may have.
Yeah, I mean, and she is innocent until proven guilty, of course. I mean, everybody, that's how this works. But it doesn't matter if the student is 18.
Right. And some of those supportive emails have also said stuff like, man, when I was in high school, these are from men. When I was in high school, I would have loved to be the one to do that with a teacher,
We
hot
love
for teacher type
men.
of thing.
Of course, men are going to be the ones to minimize this. Like I said, it's part of men's culture, right? It's part of their culture to act like this is some notch on a boy or a man's belt. It's not, right? Having a teacher have inappropriate conduct with you is nothing to be proud of. Nothing. And that's the mentality that a lot of these young people have in their brain. These men, they think this is a joke. This is a serious issue. It's a serious, serious issue. I don't understand why men would go out of their way to even email her about this. You know, it's yeah, it's misconduct. I understood what you were saying, Lana. It's not necessarily HIPAA because of there's no like disclosures or anything, but it's definitely a violation of teacher student misconduct. It's like teacher student misconduct. You're not supposed to have intimate relationships with any of your students. It just is what it is.
And it's just wild because I'm telling you, if this was a guy that was charged, we would not be getting these emails or those.
And that's the thing. Hot for Teacher, that is a Van Halen song, okay? But it still messes these kids up. It still messes these kids up because at some level, these kids maybe when this is going on, maybe they think, okay, this is okay, it's fun, whatever, or maybe they don't, and maybe they do feel like they were preyed upon. I mean, somehow they got an indictment in this case, and somehow they think they're going to get a conviction. So my question is this teenager, 18-year-old, is he cooperating with law enforcement? Do you know if that's true?
I haven't heard anything about this victim. I know who it is, obviously, because it's a small town. I've only heard support for him and support for the teacher. As far as him cooperating, I'm not sure. I know he's been questioned. We'll have to wait and see what happens. And we might not ever really know that much detail about him as far as what we can say legally because he is a victim. This is a sex abuse case type of case, a sex crime. But I think it'll be interesting to see how this plays out because I've been shocked at the attention that this has gotten nationally. And it reminds me of the Mary Kay Letourneau case that I'm sure you've talked about. I've watched that for years, and she's passed away now, but she ended up marrying her student, going to prison, having kids with her student, and they did an interview right before she passed away, and it seemed like maybe he wasn't impacted as much as some others maybe, but I think it's very.
No, I don't know. That's a deep sense of brainwashing. For them to like for her to go to jail, for them to get married and have children. I mean, he's pretty much groomed her. She's pretty much groomed him into the relationship that she wanted. Doesn't mean that he wasn't impacted. I think it's about perception at the end of the day. But is he going to be able to have a healthy relationship going forward? Probably not. He's going to need a lot of therapy, a lot. And now he has a bunch of children with her. I'd like to. I'm actually going to probably look into that case because I have heard that name briefly before. All right, let us move on to the next case here. They're going to review a little bit more, but there's a few more cases that I want to get into. The next one is another very disturbing cases, actually that has resulted in 50 charges. All right, let me share this tab with you guys, and we'll continue on to the next story. This is about a teacher, another married woman who was having an affair with a student, right? Very disturbing cases. This is a very scandalous case. This is one of the ones that's pretty new. Let me see here. Yeah, 4 days ago. I think it's obviously been ongoing, but this is a very recent case. October 15th, this is coming out. This is from Illinois. All right, let's get into it. And she was a TikToker too. That's the thing. So yeah, stay off the TikTok. These people on here are disturbing, right? People have online personas and then they go and live their weird lives out. So
she was sneaking this child into your home.
The Illinois high school teacher accused of grooming and sexually assaulting a student is back in court. Is reality sinking in for Christina Formella?
She turned around and she kind of looked at the judge. Like, to me, she almost looked scared.
I look at the latest in the case and what happened inside and outside of the courtroom.
I bet she is scared. I would be held accountable. Accountability is spooky as hell.
Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Christina Formella was back in court this week as her criminal case slowly makes its way toward trial. In case you forgot, Christina Formella is that 30-year-old teacher and soccer coach from Downers Grove, Illinois, who was arrested.
What is with all of these teachers also being coaches? It's like they want to spend morning through night with kids all day. Like, are we supposed to assume that people who have this desire to work with children are all questionable people? I mean, this is the second or third one that has been a soccer coach. Lord have mercy. All right, let's continue.
And charged earlier this year with having sex with a former student in her classroom. Now, following Formella's arrest, police said that the victim in this case told them that they had only had sex in her classroom once in 2023. But the grand jury later indicted Formella on 52 additional charges of aggravated criminal sexual abuse and criminal sexual assault. Those charges came after additional investigation, and prosecutors said a closer look at Formella's phone revealed more than one instance of sex between the boy and Formella. In fact, State Attorney Robert Bellin said that Formella and the victim had sex approximately 50 times, both at school and Formella's home, and at least 45 of those instances occurred at the school.
My goodness, talk about forensic evidence. I mean, they're going to put this lady away for. I hope they throw the book at her. This is very disturbing. Oh my God. Sorry, he scared me. He's sleeping on the other side of the pillow. Very, very disturbing. 50 instances that they can prove based off of her own documentation of this, right? And then they don't even realize that keeping that material is also a crime as well, right? Very disturbing. Let's continue.
Cool. Now, Berlin said that the sexual abuse by Formella began in January 2023 and continued through August or September of last year. Berlin issued a statement in June, writing, "The new allegations against Ms. Formella, including the allegations of grooming and that the abuse lasted nearly 2 years, are beyond disturbing. I thank the victim in this case for having the courage to come forward during what I imagine is an extremely difficult time for him." Now, when I first told you about this case back in March, we had obtained documents that recounted what Formella told investigators. They claimed she said people always try to get her in trouble because she's good looking. Christina Formella, she's an attractive woman, but that line didn't work on the cops. Formella was arrested and charged right before St. Patrick's Day with 3 felonies of criminal sexual assault and aggravated criminal sexual abuse. Police said Formella had accused the teen victim of stalking her and blamed him for a so-called memoir in her phone. The following month, the prosecutor says the victim was interviewed again and revealed more details that led to more investigation. Now we're learning that Snapchat might be involved in this case. The social media app allows users to send photos and videos. And Christina Formella and her husband, Michael, sold their Downers Grove home for nearly $600,000 last month. The legal bills are likely very steep in this case, and Formella has a very good lawyer. Now, we'll look back on the evidence we know about here in a bit, along with the body-worn camera footage from Formella's arrest. But here's one section.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi.
Officer Guzman with Downers Grove. Do you have your license on you?
Yes. Tonight?
Yeah, I'm gonna explain. I'm sure you're confused. I'll explain everything to you. You're Christina?
Yes.
Okay, Christina, do me a favor. Can you step out of the car for me? I know you're confused. I'll explain everything to you. You don't have anything on you? You can just grab whatever you need.
Whatever I need.
Yeah, whatever you need, like your phone, your purse, go ahead and grab it.
Is she going somewhere? Or?
Yeah, we're gonna explain everything to you guys. Go ahead and grab it. We're not going anywhere right now. Of course, yeah.
I don't understand what's going on here.
I get it, yeah. You can go grab your things.
Can he come with me?
Yes. You stay there for right now, sir. Just stay there, but yes, you can. But come on back here.
Should I shut the car off?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. guys off. Okay. Let's right back over here. So, we do have an investigation going on. We have to talk to you about it at the police department, okay? So we're going to explain everything to you there. It's not my investigation. I don't know the full details. We do have to bring you there, though, okay? So I do have to put you in handcuffs and bring you to the police department. Just a down
Handcuffs?
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
I'm like willing to go with you.
I get it, yeah. Unfortunately, we have to do it that way. So do me a favor, we just take this off.
This case is really every parent's worst nightmare. Trust me, a teacher
Wow.
accused of taking
You're being
advantage
so
of a student.
civil with her. Ma'am, you're under arrest for misconduct. We have to put you in handcuffs. Why is he acting like he doesn't want to arrest her? It's that simple. You know, these people always act surprised when they get caught. Ma'am, did you think nobody was ever going to catch on to your weird behavior?
Truthfinder.com/Formella. I want to bring in TikToker Abby Blabby. Please follow her on her TikTok account. She has been following this case from the very beginning, like I have. So, Abby, I know that you go to all of these court appearances.
Yes.
Tell me what happened this time.
Not a lot this time. It was continued to January 8th, 2026, obviously, at 9:30 in the morning. Basically, the prosecutor said that they still have a lot of stuff to go through. She said that they've gone through the bulk of it, but there's still a lot. And the judge said, well, if I set it for January 8th, do you think that's going to be enough time? And the prosecutor said that she does. So it'll be interesting to see what happens at that one.
Now, she was saying that they still have a lot to go through. And a lot of what they're going through, and people don't realize it, are these cell phone messages and things of that nature, right? Doesn't a lot of that stuff take them forever when you're talking about different apps used to talk on and all of that stuff?
Yeah, and actually, before the judge called Christina's name, I happened to walk outside of the courtroom because I needed to use the restroom, to be honest. And I saw the prosecutor standing there outside of the door with the defense team, and they were talking, discussing things. I heard the word Snapchat, and I heard them say there's 6 terabytes of data to go through, which is a ton.
Yeah, 6 terabytes. I mean, that's a lot. When you think of like a hard drive, you know, you can have a hard drive. I just happen to have one here sitting on my desk, right? And I think it's like a 2 terabyte hard drive. So just think of like one of these things. This is a 2 terabyte hard drive. Think of 3 of these full of data. That's what they're talking about to get to 6 terabytes full.
An absolute ton. Because, you know, I think they subpoenaed records going all the way back to when the victim was 14 years old when they would have met. So, you know, it's all of her stuff, all of his stuff. So there's a ton of data there to go through.
What was the mood like? I mean, we know how things are at a trial between prosecutors and defense teams. I mean, did it seem like there was a lot of tension between the prosecution and the defense, or did it seem like they were just having a cordial conversation?
It seemed very cordial. But, you know, it was really weird because I didn't see Christina at all before the judge called her name. And I was kind of like, where is she? Because she's court ordered that she has to come to all of these hearings. I kept looking around the room and, you know, in the back where they always sit, where the Formellas, the Chiotises, I didn't see Christina or Michael. And I'm like, what is going on? Where is she at? And then the judge called her name and up she walked. So I think she was running late.
So both sides of her family were there, both her husband Michael's side of the family, and then her mother, her parents, they were there.
Yeah, they come to all of them, and the victim's family was there as well.
Oh wow! Was the
all of
victim
them
there, or just his parents?
Just the family.
Weird that they would support her when there's that much fucking evidence. Just saying. Not saying that I would. Yeah, no, I don't even know what I would do. That is very shocking that both sides of the family, including the husband's family, would be involved when there's this much physical evidence. Yeah. All right, let's continue.
Just the family. Very interesting. And they go to all of these?
Every single one, yeah. It's really weird because I thought that she wasn't, and then walked up They were at the stand or at the judge's desk for maybe 2 minutes, and then it was done. And I will say, this is the first time when she turned around and started walking back, she just looked different to me. This is the first time I think that she has looked exhausted and defeated.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, usually she has kind of like this deer in the headlights kind of look on her face where she's just very like, she just looks straight or down or whatever, but she turned around and she kind of looked at the judge. Like, to me, she almost looked scared, and actually said something to a reporter that was sitting next to me. I was like, do you think that she looks kind of different this time? Like, she looks like it's finally hitting her, and she agreed.
Because you had said before that she and Michael were kind of giddy, laughing, things like
Yes.
that in the courtroom. And so none of that this time?
None of it. I mean, she genuinely looked defeated, exhausted, scared.
Wow.
And then
I
afterwards,
guess the last time she was giddy. I mean, what would you be laughing about, ho? I mean, I wouldn't even crack a smile in that room. What would you be laughing about? So yeah, I mean, a lot of times people don't think they're going to ever be held accountable. Maybe they don't think that things are going to hold up, but honey, your phone is it basically has all the evidence. Everything's documented, and when everything is documented to the extent that they can build a whole 53 cases, charges of this is what you did, you're better off taking a plea. Like she should take a plea at the. I mean, she should have took a plea already. There is something very disturbing about the fact that they have this much physical evidence against you, and you're going to take this to trial. She should be looking to settle this out, take a plea deal, and cut her chances of getting a murder sentence at the end of the day. She can get up to 40 years in some states for a lot of these charges here. So I mean, also depends on his age too. If he's over 14, it's a little bit different. But still, you compile that many, it's because you want to compile the sentence for this. So let's continue.
the prosecutor, the defense attorneys, Christina and Michael, all went into some conference room that's not far away from the courtroom. I obviously don't know what they were talking about, but usually, Christina meets with her attorney right after, and the families leave, but they were all there.
So you're telling me that Michael Formella, Christina Formella, the prosecution and the defense all went into a conference room together?
Yes. And honestly, it makes me wonder if they were saying something along the lines of, look, we have an absolute mound of evidence against you. And there's obviously a lot more to go through. So they might find even more and be able to bring forth new charges. So I wonder if they're telling her, hey, look, we could spend hours and hours and hours and hours going through the rest of this stuff, and you could pay your attorney, thousands and thousands and thousands.
Or you take a plea deal and stop wasting the state's time. Right? We have so much evidence. What's the point? And this is my question here as well with her. What is the point of dragging this on, lady? You've been documented as a predator. You're going to jail. 52 charges they put on you because they want you to get the consequences of this. So I definitely do believe that they likely did approach her with like a, hey, this is your chance here. If the state wastes money, we're going to go for the highest charges. Give them that come to Jesus conversation where it's like, don't waste your time. You're going to waste your time and you're going to get more time and you're going to waste your money. And they're not playing. They have a lot of cases to try. So if you make them take this all the way, they're going to make sure you get a hefty sentence. So I hope that her family and his family would be smart enough to see what is happening here and not waste the state's time. There's no way she's innocent.
This is what we could do. Like, it makes me wonder if they've talked about a plea.
That would be weird to me for Michael Formella, unless I guess Christina Formella wanted him to go with her to go in there like that. That seems very odd to me.
It was odd to me too. Yeah. Very odd.
Did you hear the words plea come up in the hallway at all?
I did. Now, I don't know who said it. It was a woman, so I would assume the prosecutor, but the junior attorney was out there too, and she's a female, so it could have been her, but it sounded like the prosecutor to me. Now, I don't know what she was saying. I just heard that word stood out to me, plea.
I still think, though, they would have an obligation to investigate further. I mean,
absolutely.
We don't know. This is one teenage boy we're talking about here that she's accused of having a relationship with. Mm-hmm. We don't know what else they're finding in this 6 terabytes. I'm not implying that there's anything else there, but as you said,
right. But you never know.
You never know. And they did add more charges after her initial arrest. You know, when they first arrested her and they went through the phone, and then they continued to investigate, and they came back after the case went to grand jury with a whole slew of new charges.
52 more, bringing the total to 55. So I wonder if after they go through all this, if that number is going to go up even higher.
Yeah, 6 terabytes. That takes a long time to go through because the investigators will have to go through it. Prosecutors obviously will have to as well. What was Michael Formella's mood like?
So I only saw him for a second after it was done and Christina was walking back from the judge's desk. She immediately walked out of the courtroom, and then Michael stood up and he walked right after her. So I didn't see his face or anything, so I honestly couldn't tell you. But he was right there with her.
But obviously from your vantage point and your read on the room, obviously it looks serious. This is a very serious case.
Yes.
And
very much so.
I mean, no, this can't be fun for anybody involved. The victim is a kid, a teenager. So certainly not fun for him. His parents are coming to court for all of these hearings. Yikes.
Yeah, you're right.
They've got to be just absolutely angry given the allegations.
I think it's a little disturbing. Are they implying that she was that she's out on bail? I mean, it would be hard to argue that she would be a flight risk, but why is she out? Oh my Lord. That's so disturbing. All right, we'll follow up with that case as it progresses. Let's move on to this next one here. This one actually stems back to a case that I believe I covered it. It was on a video that got restricted, but still nonetheless covered this story a little while ago of a teacher who was having a relationship. And this kind of rolls back to that case because the teacher who knew about this is being charged as well.
There appears to be something very wrong at a Wisconsin elementary school. Now, we've told you before about Madison Bergman, a 5th grade teacher who resigned after shocking allegations came to light about her behavior with an 11-year-old boy. At the time, we knew a fellow teacher was accused of knowing about the so-called relationship and not reporting it. But now, as we learn more about her, this case has gotten worse. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. There are shocking new details that have come to light about a major scandal at an elementary school in St. Croix County, Wisconsin. You may remember this woman, Madison Bergman, right? She faces nearly a dozen charges related to sexual contact with a child under the age of 13 after she allegedly made out with an 11-year-old boy and carried on a wildly inappropriate messaging thread with him. Now, Bergman, who, by the way, had been set to get married when she was arrested in May of last year, oversaw a class of 5th graders at Rivercrest Elementary School. Now, we're going to talk more about her in just a moment, okay? But when all the details about Bergman started coming out, there was another 5th grade teacher, Abigail Faust, who resigned. Bergman's alleged victim told police that Faust knew about what Bergman was doing and didn't try to stop it. That alleged victim also revealed that Faust also had inappropriate contact with a student. And according to the New York Post, text messages between Bergman and the boy, of which there are tens of thousands, talk about alleged contact between Faust and another boy when she allegedly pushed him against a wall and kissed on the cheek. Faust was charged in St. Croix County with failure to protect a child, causing mental harm to a child, child enticement, and sexual misconduct by school staff or a volunteer. As news of those charges spread, a family in
What is wrong with these demented people in Wisconsin? Lord have mercy. So two eggheads from the same school are literally weirdos who have relationship with literally 10 and 11-year-olds. This is so disturbing. Both of them were fifth grade teachers. Who is vetting these teachers? I mean, look at her. She looks like an alien. Lord have mercy. Let's continue.
in nearby Washington County, Minnesota, just across the border, they realized that was their nanny. That's right. This family had hired Faust back in 2021 to help watch their children, reportedly a baby who was a few months old, a girl who was around 9, and a boy who was 15 when he claims Faust started sexually abusing him. And if that allegation just wasn't heinous enough, the teen claims that Faust also started sleeping with his friend. Because some of the alleged contact between the teens and Faust happened in Wisconsin, Faust now faces 13 more charges. So 2 counts of use of a computer to facilitate a child sex crime, 5 counts of second-degree sexual assault of a child under 16 years of age, 3 counts of child enticement, 2 counts of exposing a child to harmful material, and 1 count of causing a child under 13 to view or listen to sexual activity. Now, we got our hands on the newest criminal complaint that was filed against her, and honestly, strap in because the details are very, very disturbing. So we want to get into this, and to dig into the evidence that the police have compiled so far, I want to bring on back here onto the show former criminal prosecutor Dan Shore. And for anybody who doesn't know, Dan is also leading a sexual misconduct investigation firm that works with schools and educational institutions. And he is also an author who has a book that is unfortunately very similar to the content that we talk about. Isn't that right, Dan?
Yeah, it's called Open Bar, and it's about sexual.
Yeah, Lana Love, this is what I'm wondering. Seriously, is this like a new emergence of female predators, or have these predators just been lying in wait because the focus has so heavily been on male teachers? You know, this is a lot of cases coming out, and obviously birds of a feather, right? The fact that that lady resigned when the other one got arrested, I think that was a sign. That was her consciousness telling her, bitch, you're next, right? You're next. They're going to find out about you next because there's also a digital record of what you did. And she knew this was coming at the end of the day, but why? Why would you be? I mean, this is very disturbing. These are younger teachers in their 20s having relationships with 11-year-olds. I mean, that is sick. That is very sick that these boys are being preyed on by old wenches. I believe it's a way to siphon energy, honestly. It's very demonic of these women to be doing that to these children. Very disturbing.
Misconduct at educational institutions. This is a wide-ranging issue that I see all the time in my work, and the book tries to show behind the scenes what really happens in these cases, not just what you see in the news. So it's always important to talk about these issues, and I'm glad you're covering them.
So Dan, before we even get into the specifics of this criminal complaint, does it surprise you, does it shock you that we were talking about two alleged predators at one school? Oh, and then it's what, an elementary school?
Right. There's a lot of shocking details here. And unfortunately, we've seen a lot of cases that when someone does offend, does sexually abuse someone who is a minor, when they're a teacher, there's a lot of cases where it's not an isolated situation. If someone feels emboldened to engage in that kind of conduct, I've seen in my investigations, both as a prosecutor and as an investigator for college and universities, that often there's a history of misconduct. And that's why when there is one allegation, it's really important for schools to look into and for law enforcement to look into what else has been happening in this person's career. And you also have that separate allegation that this teacher at another school had known about another inappropriate relationship that someone else was engaged with and hadn't properly disclosed that. So there's so much to unpack here. Unfortunately, a lot of disturbing details.
You know, as we're talking about this, I have to tell you, I cover crazy stories all day. And I'm not going to lie to you. It really makes me stop and think about myself, my loved ones, family. If something should happen, would my family still be able to cover the big expenses, right? We're talking mortgage, intimidation, or incentives, coverage, knowing you're through ETH. That is ET criminal complaint against.com/sidebar. So according to this criminal complaint against Faust.
Let me just say, Jesse, that was a shameless plug to be in the middle of this sentence regarding this case and just start giving us an ad for life insurance. I mean, at least the commercials are smoother than that. You know, just way too much, Jesse. Way too much. You should work on that.
And that's what we're going to talk about. You had a St. Croix, Wisconsin detective who met with the parents of a boy referred to as Victim 1. And they disclosed that Abigail Faust had been their nanny a few days a week since 2021. And that their son claimed when he was 15 and she was 24, their relationship took a sexual turn. Victim 1 sat down with the detective for a forensic interview and divulged absolutely sickening details. The criminal complaint reads, I asked Victim 1 how he was generally feeling since the initial report of his sexual abuse was made. He stated, kind of gross, that he felt manipulated, and that he felt kind of used. Victim 1 became emotional, and I could see tears well up in his eyes. He recounted how Abigail, over time, became almost a member of the family. Victim 1 described how she would join the family when they went to their cabin, and more recently joined them on a vacation to the Bahamas. Before the sexual abuse began, he described his relationship with Abigail as normal. She would often sit with him while he played video games and helped him organize his manga collection. Victim 1 stated that the relationship changed in December of 2024. Now, Dan, this is interesting, right? So you're seeing, based on this account, Faust is seeing this teen a few times a week, right? You could say that maybe becoming more comfortable around her, but the onus is on her to keep this relationship professional. He's a child. Would you consider what we've heard so far normal activities? Is the allegation that this would look like grooming? And how do you differentiate between that and just doing her job as a nanny? I mean, that's the line there.
Right. And you flag a lot of important issues there because, first of all, most sex abuse, not all, but most sex abuse that I've investigated involves someone who is in a trusted position. And it could be a trusted person who's a teacher or a coach or a relative or someone's in some kind of relationship.
Yeah, and that's the problem, right? It's somebody who's in a trusted role and somebody who takes advantage of that trust and that that role, that leadership, whatever you want to call it, that custody even, right? Because they have control in that situation of the children, of what's going on in the household, right? They have that trusted role, whether the person actually knows if they're trustworthy or not. They're given that power and control before they ever choose to do anything. And it's weird. She's a teacher. She's a nanny. Again, wanting to spend every waking moment with the victims, with the people that she's preying on. Very disturbing. All right, let's continue.
With who then abuses the privacy of that relationship and takes sexual advantage of another person. So unfortunately, it's not unusual to see a sex abuse case where someone is trusted by a family, put in a position of trust and abuses that trust. I think what makes it more unusual here is you have a 24-year-old woman who is a nanny taking care of a family and, according to the allegations, then starts a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old. The part where in hindsight, we could look back at it as grooming, sitting with him, looking through different details of his life, talking about it. That's something that I think as a family hiring a nanny that you welcome, right? You want the nanny to be part of your family, interact with your family, be supportive of your family. And unfortunately, if these allegations are true, that access to the family led to taking advantage of this 15-year-old boy. And I think it's really important that now as a society, we've reached a point where we do take cases like this seriously. When I started my career as a sex crimes prosecutor 25 years ago, I think a lot of people didn't not take it seriously when cases like this involved an underage boy and a defendant who's a woman. It was often seen as this wink, wink, oh, I'm sure he wanted it because he's a teenage boy. And I think now we've recognized as a society that this is serious sex abuse, that it can traumatize a young boy just like it can traumatize a young girl, and needs to be taken seriously. And that's different than it was a few years ago.
So let me go through this a little bit more. So according to victim one, he and Faust were going through each other's memories on the Snapchat app. And this is
And I'm glad he made that point, right? That over time, it's gotten to be more serious, right? People have gotten to take it more seriously. But again, it's been a cultural thing where men, boys, whatever, they think that it's not something that can be traumatizing, but it truly is. How does a boy have a normal relationship with girls and women his age as he ages, right? If this happened to him when he was younger, somebody who was supposed to be a trusted mentor, leader, somebody that they can lean on as a helpful person, chose to prey on them. Right? That's lifelong trauma that happens no matter the gender of the child or the perpetrator. I think it's strange that these things did used to be brushed under. I like that they're holding these people accountable now. Let's continue.
when victim one came across a photo of Faust holding her breasts in a provocative way. She was clothed in the photo, according to the complaint, but it led to further sexually charged conversations between the two. That's the allegation. And that also allegedly led to more inappropriate messages and photos from Faust where she was wearing lingerie. This is according to the teen. And the victim says that Faust mentioned multiple times that she knew this behavior was wrong. Quoting from the criminal complaint, later, as her sexual abuse of victim one escalated, victim one recalled Abigail framing it as, "You know this is bad, I know this is bad, and we'll both get into trouble if you tell anyone." So when the two allegedly exchanged nude photos on this Snapchat app, he recalled her messaging him, "I can't believe I'm looking at a picture of a 15-year-old's genitals." He remembered her also saying through Snapchat, "I'm feeling grossed out at myself." Victim one recalled many instances where Abigail would, in summary, voice to him her realization that she was doing something improper. Now, Dan, knowledge is important in these cases, right? Compulsion, I don't know what it is. If you know it's wrong, why are you doing it? But awareness, that becomes critical for prosecutors.
It certainly is important to show consciousness of guilt, to show awareness, but it's also important to know that these crimes are statutory crimes. Statutory rape is a generic term for when there's an underage person and someone who's over the age of consent and there's a sexual relationship that is illegal. And in those kinds of cases, it's not a defense generally in the law that the person wasn't aware the person was younger, although in this case, of course, she was aware. It's really a case of just, was there sexual contact between these individuals? Was one person underage? And that's enough to make it a conviction. But certainly all the awareness, I think that would go maybe not towards the conviction, because a conviction is based on the sexual activity and the ages, but sentencing, that someone was aware that it was wrong, that they were doing it further. I also want to add, I have a lot of investigations with Snapchat, and it's really tough as an investigator to deal with these cases with Snapchat because the messages disappear. It's hard to get them. And a lot of people in these relationships use Snapchat to cover up their communications.
Aren't they on the server, though? Like, don't they never really disappear?
Well, Snapchat has different responses to different people. Certainly, law enforcement can try to get them. Sometimes they do get them. But certainly, for someone making a case to law enforcement where they don't have those records, it's a lot harder. I know as an investigator, when I work with schools and they don't have subpoena power, we don't have access to the Snapchat records. So law enforcement can do a lot here, and they're doing it here, but it's very dangerous the way people are communicating so much over Snapchat in these sexual relationships involving sexual abuse, because then you don't have a record where you could show a friend, show a family member, show a teacher and say, look, here's what's happening, because those messages are gone.
Real quick, more psychological than anything, if somebody knows this is wrong, why do they keep doing it?
That's a great question. I think that criminologists are always trying to figure that out. Sometimes it can be the temptation of being in the relationship with somebody else. And also, people commit sex abuse for various reasons. Sometimes it's because they were victims of sex abuse when they were younger. Sometimes it's other mental health issues, that they feel lonely in their lives, that they're reaching out to somebody. And sometimes it's about power and control. That's a big motivator in sex abuse cases I've seen, where someone likes the position of being in power and control over someone who is a subordinate, or someone who's younger, or someone who's a student versus a teacher. And that's unfortunately a motivator for a lot of people that are committing sex abuse.
Let's continue on. So earlier this year, this is when things escalated immensely. And this is when Faust started spending the night at victim one's home. Okay, this is the new allegation. Quote, on approximately January 17th, 2025, victim one recalled Abigail staying over at his house for the first time. I asked him how that came about. He indicated that Abigail would ask him and his sister to encourage their parents on Abigail's behalf. He described Abigail staying over several more times for the next few months. Now, when Faust would sleep over, victim one alleges that they eventually started having sex. He says on one occasion, the condom that he was wearing broke, and the two worried about whether Faust might get pregnant and what they would do if she did. But Faust also allegedly made comments about wanting to be in a committed relationship with him and eventually have children with him. Now, the detective wrote in the criminal complaint, I asked victim one how he felt about his relationship with Abigail at that time. He said that he felt, in summary, that they were both in an exclusive and loving relationship. They shared pet names like Honey, Baby, Babe, and Sweetheart. Victim one said that there were occasions when he was holding his younger brother where Abigail would remark that someday he would be taking care of their own child in the same manner. In April of this year, victim one and his family, they went on a trip to Florida, apparently, while Faust had been hired to pet sit. But she was allegedly using the family's home for more than just hookups with victim one. She brought one of his friends there too, according to prosecutors. Victim one told investigators that he was worried that Faust might be, quote, cheating on him with another teen based on Snapchat photos that he'd seen of a boy, identified only as victim two, and a woman believed to be Faust. Now, victim two would later...
She is a disturbing individual. I am glad that this all came to light. She's a creep. I mean, talk about a weirdo. This is definitely one of them. She is a major, major creep. You know, not only to be engaging in one relationship with a child, but to have another child boyfriend. I mean, she's sick. There's no fixing this. This is a disease in the head.
Tell detectives that while victim one was out of town, he ended up stranded and needed a ride. So he called Faust, and she gave him a ride to his home. And nothing happened then, but the two started meeting up and spending more and more time together before eventually engaging in sexual intercourse. And victim two told police that he spent the night with Faust at both her home and victim one's home while the family was away. The criminal complaint even alleges that when Faust found out that victim one had started seeing a girl his own age, she tried to pit the boys against each other, taunting victim one with details about her exploits with his friend. I wish I was making this up, but this is what we're reading. And despite this, victim one claims that their sexual relationship resumed over this past summer when Faust was still nannying for his family. And in July, the two were nearly caught having sex during a family trip to their cabin. And victim one told detectives he believes his parents were starting to get suspicions about his relationship with Faust. In August, his mother told him that he had to stop hanging out with Faust. He should cut all contact. Victim one says that Faust came to his job, gave him a t-shirt, something that he took as a parting gift. They kissed for the last time. And later that day, Faust texted him that she had a warrant out for her arrest. That was the warrant for her conduct at Rivercrest Elementary. Now, despite that, the two still continued to send messages back and forth. But when his parents found out about those Wisconsin charges on the news, they fired Faust. First, let's stop there. Dan, where do you want to begin? I mean, my gosh.
I mean, this is a scandalous...
You know why we're here, Michaela?
Had a warrant out.
This is a scandalous weirdo. I mean, she's very weird. You know, to be carrying out multiple relationships with multiple teenage boys. Her head is gone. She doesn't have anything. She's not a civilized human being. And yes, you're right, Gito. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Right? Not only this is all going on with her, the person that she's nannying, she's also involved in these sex crimes at her school in Wisconsin that she works at. So that would be her full-time job.
For her arrest. That was the warrant for her conduct at Rivercrest Elementary. Now, despite that, the two still continued to send messages back and forth. But when his parents found out about those Wisconsin charges on the news, they fired Faust. First, let's stop there. Dan, where do you want to begin? I mean, my gosh, that is next level.
On the one hand, it's so shocking to hear all those details, the way you lay them out. But also, this is, if you look at it in a more general way, this is typical grooming behavior where someone ingratiates themselves with a family, becomes trusted by this person, then abuses that trust, begins a sexual relationship. What we generally don't see is the additional victim who's also a friend of the first boy and then engaging in sexual relations with that person at the family's home. Then you have the other issue at the school. So what you see here, you raised the issue before about why do people do things when they know it's wrong. Well, here, if the allegations are true, it's not just about being tempted by one person. It's about a pattern of misconduct with more than one person. And it shows that there's not only an awareness of this, but an interest in continuing these types of relationships with more than just this one boy at this family. So that is even more concerning. That's going to lead to, she's facing criminal charges in more than one state. And you could definitely see consecutive time potentially if there's a conviction here.
And potential witnesses that would testify against her, right? Because victim one had apparently confided also in a friend about what had been going on with Faust, and that friend eventually told their parents, who apparently
she has a pattern of engaging in these types of relationships.
How is it possible?
And there's no reason
concerning that's
and there's no reason to believe that she wouldn't engage in this in the future, right? This is her way of relating. A lot of times, at least you see in the other cases, those people have marriages. Oh, Kitty, what are you doing, Kitty? A lot of those people have marriages, um, children, families, something else on on the forefront, right? But for her, in the back end, she's in a relationship with a child that she's nannying and his friend, and then in the school, she's abusing those children and has relationships that are inappropriate with children within that establishment. So it's just her pattern. This is her way of relating, whether it be at the school or her job nanny. Right? She's a full on predator.
Going to lead to, she's facing criminal charges in more than one state. And you could definitely see consecutive time potentially if there's a conviction here.
And potential witnesses that would testify against her, right? Because victim one had apparently confided also in a friend about what had been going on with Faust, and that friend eventually told their parents, who apparently told the alleged victim's parents too, who came to him about it. So you have multiple people who can corroborate, essentially, right, what victim one has been saying.
Not only that, but you also, whenever you have more than one victim who is willing to give an account, that's really hard for a defense to attack, because you could always attack one person as, oh, they're not credible, they have a motive to lie. But when two different people have similar claims, and it's hard to believe that two separate people would come together to fabricate something. And also when they talk about the same pattern of behavior, and then there's also the other corroboration you mentioned, that's really challenging for a defense to try to stop from, the prosecution getting a conviction.
And victim one's mother also approached Faust herself. Yeah, so according to the criminal complaint, the detective said, I briefly conversed with victim one's mother. She told me that she had called Abigail on August 22nd, 2025 to confront her. She asked Abigail if she had sex with victim one. Victim one's mother said that Abigail would not answer the question and instead stated that it was not a conversation meant to be had over the phone. It's pretty telling, right?
Yeah, I mean, usually if you're going to ask someone if they're having sex with your underage son, you would expect the answer to be no. So anything that's wavering from that is not an explicit no, would imply you would think that something is going on, right? Otherwise, you would just say that. So if it's not a discussion to have over the phone, that's pretty telling. So, and that's important evidence that this mother can testify that this is, although it's not an explicit admission, it's tantamount to an explicit admission.
And yes, it's an allegation, but my gosh, it's just, it's next level. Now, according to Wisconsin's court records, Faust's preliminary hearing is scheduled for October 15th. She was given a $200,000 cash bond. It's not clear if she's been able to post it. Do you surprised that they put up a bond? And what about in that amount?
I'm not surprised, even though this is really disturbing behavior. There's, we don't know of a criminal record this defendant has. A lot of times the amount is based on whether someone's a flight risk or not, whether they're a danger to hurt somebody else. It's in the news now a lot, so I think the community will be aware of what she's alleged to have done. So it seems like a reasonable amount. And this is the part where they'll probably get into serious plea.
Yeah, and she likely is not going to have access to children at this point. There's evidence, there's victims. She's under investigation and scrutiny. her name is publicly out there. She's not going to be able to work around children. So, I mean, it kind of sucks, but they are going to let her go. I don't believe that she's going to stop contacting any of these kids inappropriately, which is the disturbing part with her being out. So I do hope that she gets a speedy trial at least, so that she's not on the street too long. Because obviously she's bold. She doesn't care to have to not have a relationship or talk to these young people. She's dealing with multiple of them at once. She's still dealing with one child while multiple are she's already being held accountable for multiple other instances. I do feel like she's going to continue this behavior, unfortunately. So let's hope that this is a speedy trial for her. Okay. Let's move on to the next case, guys. This one was very disturbing, but they always have to outdo themselves. And now for the woman in the thumbnail, we're finally going to get into her trial here. She has this look of shame in her eyes, but when she got pregnant and planned her life with a 11-year-old boy, she didn't have the same face on. So don't let the look of sadness or fake self-accountability fool you, right? She is a predator. Let's get into this case.
She sexually assaulted a boy for years. Starting when he was just 11 years old, she allegedly had his baby when he was 13. Now a grand jury's indicted Laura Karen, and we are diving into this twisted story. And oh, by the way, she's out on bond. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. You might still be digesting what I just said there in the open of this show because of what a 5th grade teacher is accused of in South Jersey. Her name is Laura Karen, and there is a lot to unpack in this story when we look at what she's accused of. Before I get to the new details, that
this is like the 4th 5th grade teacher. 5th grade teacher, soccer coach, um, has a moonlighting job as a nanny. What is with these people? Gino says back in the day they would call her a man. Oh Lord, this is what I'm saying. A lot of it goes under the rug, I think, because people literally glamorize this. They glamorize this for young men, and this is nothing to be proud of. This is something that's going to cause major issues for this young man. And in this case, a baby came out of it. Sorry.
Came down on this case in just the last week, let me remind you of what Karen allegedly did. Karen was a 5th grade teacher at a public elementary school in Middle Township, New Jersey. It's a town located along the coast near the southernmost tip of the Garden State. This story broke in January, and it was broken in a very unique and explosive way because the father of the alleged victim, who we'll talk about in just a moment, went on Facebook and posted that Karen's 5-year-old son looked very similar to his son, as if his son was the father. Now, Karen's daughter was born in 2019, and that is when the father's son was just 13 years old. Karen was 28. I'll get into what police have allegedly found out as they've been building their case that this 5-year-old girl is in fact the son of a then 13-year-old boy. But here's how Karen allegedly gained access to this young boy. Not only did Karen just teach the
the baby is 5 now, meaning he's 18. Oh my goodness! Look at this. This lady's a weirdo.
The alleged victim and his brother, but they lived with Karen. According to court documents, the victim's parents say they struck up a friendship with their boy's 5th grade teacher. They allowed their kids to spend time at her house, and eventually they allowed the kids to spend the night there. And according to court records, quote, it began with 1 or 2 nights a week, and eventually the children stayed with Karen permanently from 2016 to 2020. Now, listen, that living arrangement certainly stuck out to us. It's unclear what was going on, that the parents decided that their kids should go and live with their fifth grade teacher for several years. Police spoke with the victim's sister, who also stayed at Karen's house, and she said that she and her siblings would stay in a shared room upstairs in the home. But there were times in the morning when she would wake up and her then 11-year-old brother wouldn't be in the room with them. Instead, he would be in Karen's bedroom, sleeping in her bed. She also said that while the other children showered in a second floor bathroom, the victim, her brother, would shower in a first floor bathroom. And she also said that she allegedly saw Karen enter the bathroom and lock the door. According to court documents, Karen sexually abused this victim starting in 2016 when that boy was just 11 years old, and it continued on for 4 years. When interviewed by police, the victim said that he believed that Karen, his former fifth grade teacher, would have sex with him twice a week. And then he continued communication with Karen up until his dad made that Facebook post last year alleging that Karen was the mother of the victim's child. All right, let's talk about those allegations. Not only do police have the Facebook post made by the victim's father, they also allegedly have a screenshot that the victim's sister took of a conversation that she had with the victim, where he, quote, admits he is the father and, quote, requests her not to tell anyone because he does not want Karen to get in trouble. Police also say the victim's mom spoke with her son, and she says that he admitted to her that he is the now 5-year-old girl's dad.
I mean, I think this is someone who's obviously obsessed with control, right? Because why else would you let a child impregnate you, right? He's obviously not going to have any power or control over this child. He has motive to keep this quiet, right? He's not going to admit that this is the situation going on. He's a child himself, right? I think this is about power and control for her. And that's what makes this incredibly disturbing. Let's continue.
Everybody, this is a law and crime legal alert. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious conditions like actually laying into frustration? The W screen January 15th, less than a month after the Facebook post accusing her of being the mom of a 13-year-old's child, and sexual abuse went public. She was charged with aggravated sexual assault, and endangering the welfare of a child. The school district where she worked said she was put on administrative leave. Now, this is video of the teacher in court per WPVI TV, and according to court records, the former teacher is now out on bond for non-monetary conditions. Now, her defense attorney has pointed out that at this time, there's no DNA evidence that proves that the victim is indeed the father of Karen's child. The alleged father of her child is now 20 years old. And the Daily Mail claims that they spoke with him and they say he is standing by his former teacher. He claims he wasn't groomed by Karen, but, quote, I started everything. If it was up to me, she wouldn't have been in jail. It's been 6 or 7 years. I'm 19, about to be 20. This week, a grand jury in Cape May County, New Jersey, indicted Karen. The prosecutor on the case, named Jeffrey Sutherland, stated, quote, these allegations are deeply disturbing, particularly given the position of trust the defendant held in relation to the victim. Our office remains committed to protecting the most vulnerable members of our community and will continue to aggressively investigate and prosecute those who violate that trust. Join us now to talk about this case is practice professor of law at Temple University, Marian Bracha. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. This is a shocking story that's taking place not too far from where you live in Philadelphia. Have you seen a case like this before? It just seems, we've talked about teachers who have been accused of crossing the line, but this just seems to be at a whole new level.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, there have been cases where teachers, those in caregiving positions, those who are really supposed to be the most responsible for the well-being of our children, have engaged in conduct like this. And I have seen and in fact handled other cases where pregnancy has resulted as a result of this context.
What stands out to you in terms of the relationship between this alleged victim and this teacher? Because she taught him, but then he's living at her house with his siblings, and it went on for a long period of time.
Right. Well, I think the most confounding factor in all of this was the age of the complainant or the alleged victim. at the start. I believe it's alleged that he was only 11 years old, and it continued for a certain number of years. So if you think about an 11-year-old, that's in some instances even prepubescent. So it's pretty shocking that sexual contact would have started that young.
What is it about? Because we've covered a lot of cases where teachers have had sexual relations with students. What have you found the driving factor is behind so many of these cases where you see a teacher do something like this, allegedly, with someone who is so young and it went on for so long?
Well, I don't want to generalize, and I don't want to say that there is one particular factor or one trait that runs in common across either every defendant who's been accused of a crime like this, or certainly any defendant who's been convicted of a crime like this. I will, however, say that there is diagnostic material that a sex offender would go through an analysis, would go through a psychiatric analysis post-conviction, and there are diagnoses in the DSM that are related to the abuse of children and to the adult attraction to children. As disturbing as that may sound to your viewers, that is a diagnosis that is recognized in the medical community. But I think more than that, in a case like this, what we're looking at is someone who really abused the trust and abused the access that they were given to children, and someone who just violated the most basic tenets of trust and caregiving in our.
Yeah, definitely violated the trust. I don't understand why they would go and live with this teacher unless it was a matter of um, moving out of a school district. Maybe that was how they stayed into a school district. They didn't want to leave. I don't know. It seems like there's not a lot of information on that, but I don't understand why they would be living with this teacher outside of it being like a financial necessity, which makes this even worse that she would have preyed on a family that needed, like financial help. All right, let's continue.
Society.
Yeah, I mean, incredibly well put, because these are just really, really tough allegations. She's facing charges of not just endangering the welfare of a child, but aggravated sexual assault and sexual assault. What is the difference between those two charges?
So aggravated sexual assault in New Jersey is a felony of the first degree, and in Pennsylvania, the equivalent charge would be the rape of a child. So that is where we are seeing the allegation of the sexual penetration, not only sexual contact, but sexual penetration of a child younger than age 13. The sexual assault charge is a second degree charge that is basically what Pennsylvania and what some other states would call statutory sexual assault. So that means that there was contact with a minor who was under the age of 16, in this case under the age of 13, by an alleged perpetrator who was more than 4 years older than the alleged victim. So that's why there are two charges that do not merge. They carry different elements that must be proven by the prosecution on all counts.
Last week, she was indicted by a grand jury on these charges. And I've often heard people say that it's very simple to get a grand jury indictment, but what actually happens during that? What type of evidence is presented, and what is the bar to get that? Is it really that easy to get a grand jury indictment, as much as I think sometimes you hear attorneys say?
So I think that some of the resistance and some of the bad rap, if you will, against a grand jury proceeding is that the defense is not present. So the defendant is not present at those proceedings. There is no cross-examination of the prosecution witnesses at those proceedings, by and large. There are certainly exceptions, and there are certainly states that handle a grand jury very differently. But the bar is at any pre-trial hearing, the standard really is prima facie. So at a pre-trial or at a preliminary hearing, what the prosecution has to prove is that it is more likely than not that a crime was committed, and that it is more likely than not that the person who's accused, that the named defendant, was the person who committed that crime. So they do have to establish that a crime was committed and that the person they are seeking to charge is more likely than not the person who committed that crime. Again, that is a lesser standard than what we have heard and what we know from trial, which is beyond a reasonable doubt. If this case goes to trial, the defendant would absolutely have the Fifth Amendment right to confrontation, would have the right to be present for any testimony presented against her by either the complaining witness or any other expert witnesses who the prosecution would call. And of course, in order for a conviction to attach, a fact finder, either a judge or a jury, would have to find that the prosecution proved every element of every crime charged against this defendant beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the standard that has applied to criminal cases for the 200 and almost 50 years of this country's existence.
And one thing I noticed is they have members of the victim's family saying that he has said that he is the father of this now 5-year-old daughter who allegedly was born when he was just 13 years old. But they don't have the DNA. They don't have the paternity test to prove. What is the process of getting that, if you're the prosecution, to have that piece of evidence, assuming that now that she has a defense attorney, that there may have to be some back and forth?
Sure. I mean, there's almost certainly going to be a search warrant executed for her DNA, for the child's DNA, for the alleged victim's DNA. There are certain things that we do not have an expectation of privacy in. We do not have an expectation of privacy in our appearance because we walk down the street with our face showing. We don't have an expectation of privacy in our fingerprints because we leave fingerprints everywhere, on subway stations, on glass doors, on surfaces that we touch at coffee shops. So our DNA is actually something that we leave, that we don't have an expectation of privacy in. It will be, I would think, a rather straightforward process for the prosecution to request a search warrant from a judge or from a magistrate in New Jersey to have that search warrant executed, meaning that a buccal swab will be taken. It looks like a tongue depressor, but it's plastic and it scrapes along the inside of a subject's mouth to take buccal cells from a person's mouth, and then those the results of that DNA sample would be compared and could be used in court to prove that the offspring between this defendant and the alleged victim was the result of sexual intercourse between them.
Whether or not she had his baby, which is just it's a wild accusation, but it wouldn't change the fact that she allegedly sexually assaulted him and she's charged with that sexual abuse. How does the baby factor into what her punishment could be and how this trial goes forward?
Well, first of all, the baby, I hate to say it, is probably the best physical evidence that exists that there was sexual conduct and sexual penetration in this case, because the baby and the DNA from that baby would be the proof that these two people reproduced together. And of course, the only way to do that, unless they're alleging that there was some kind of in vitro fertilization, but the only way to have done that would have been through sexual contact, through sexual penetration. So will the baby factor into a sentencing decision? Maybe. I have seen judges take into consideration.
I mean, it definitely should. You know, you have a child. It's one thing to be with a victim, but to have their child and have that stain, I'm sorry to say, right, where you are attached to that victim for the rest of their life. It's very unfortunate. And that victim and that child, unfortunately, tends to be collateral damage, I'll say, right? Because now that baby is born into trauma, born into a cyclical, you know, form of trauma as well, because one of his parents, was groomed. All right, let us move on to the next case, guys. This one was disturbing enough. All right, this one is about a boy who actually speaks out. Now, I totally am for kids speaking up against what is happening to them. I wish this family would have shielded him a little bit. I don't like that his identity is out there and he's this young. He's 14. But he's an aspiring actor, so I could see why he would be vocal. So let's get into this case here. All right. Also, keep in mind all of these things are alleged. So even though I'm saying like these people are despicable, blah 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 blah, let's keep in mind that all of this is alleged. All right. Thank you. Let's continue. And good evening to everyone that's coming in. Good evening, Empress Kia. Those of you who are in the clouds, thank you for joining the show with me right now is all I wanted to say. And let's continue.
It's a stunning moment as a teen speaks out about the years of sexual abuse he says he suffered at the hands of a teacher.
Just because I'm a man doesn't mean that it should be shunned away. Because I was a child, I wasn't a man. I was a boy.
Grant Strickland met the kindergarten teacher when he was 14 years old and auditioned for the lead male role in his community theater production of Legally Blonde the musical. Grant won the part. Teacher Nicole Callahan was the director.
I had to grow up very, very fast and get on a whole nother maturity level that I was never ready for and shouldn't have had to been.
Detectives say the teacher started grooming the 9th grader and pressured him into an inappropriate and unlawful relationship that went on for 2 years. She reportedly even signed him out of the school and personally drove him to rehearsals. Sometimes she drove him to a hotel. Other times they got together in a parking garage.
State your name for me, ma'am.
Nicole Callahan. The 33-year-old teacher wiped away tears during her first appearance in court in Anderson County, South Carolina.
You will have a no contact order with the victim or the victim's family. Do you understand the no contact order?
Yes, Your Honor. Grant, who is now 18, says he decided to come forward to put a human face on what he experienced.
This happens, and it happens a lot, and it's not just to women, it's to men too, and it happens to young children, and it's got to stop. I would never want someone to go through what I went through because I don't really think that most people would be strong enough to survive it because I almost didn't.
Strong boy. I don't like that they put him out there, but you know, he's right. There needs to be a face on.
I want to get a introduction.
There needs to be a face on, you know, the victim so that people feel humanized. There's too much where people think there's particular types of victims. All right, let's get into this one here. This teacher admitted to her crimes. 1 second. I'm going to share the screen because I popped out for a second.
Has admitted she sexually assaulted 2 of her students. She entered a guilty plea to 2 counts of sexual assault involving former students that happened years apart. So let's take a closer look at how much time she could spend in prison as the state of New Jersey deals with a wave of child sex abuse cases involving educators. We're on the case, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. 37-year-old Julie Rizzatello is no longer a teacher. She's a former teacher, and she also has a new moniker, and that is convicted criminal for what she is admitted to doing to 2 of her former students in New Jersey. Rizzatello entered a guilty plea to 2 counts of sexual assault of former students after admitting to having sex with them, even apparently inviting one boy to her home. So, how did we get here? And even though we seem to talk about these cases more than we'd like, it's always shocking when a teacher crosses a line, or frankly just blasts past the line in cases like this, then admits to what happened. Rizzatello resigned from her position. She was an English teacher at Wall High School, which is on the Jersey Shore, little more than an hour's drive from Philadelphia, on July 3rd, 2024. It was just days before she was arrested. She had been with the school since 2013, and then it was revealed in court proceedings that the Wall Township Public Schools Director of Human Resources was the one to contact Wall Township Police after another employee reported it. And it appears that word of sexual contact between the teacher and student had started to spread because that student told some of his friends about what happened. Now, in the beginning, the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office knew of one former student who was victimized by Rizzatello. But then things got worse for her a few weeks later after her arrest when another male student came forward to make the same claims. Now, according to an affidavit, between April and June of 2024, Rizzatello had sex with a teenager who was either 17 or 18 years old at the time. The reporting's mixed, in at least 3 jurisdictions: Wall Township, Brick Township, and the borough of Belmar. The teen told authorities that Rizzatello assaulted him multiple times, including in his car, and she also sent him nude photos. Now, just one day before she was booked into the Monmouth County Jail, Rizzatello asked the victim to delete those raunchy text messages. She was charged with 2 counts of sexual assault, witness tampering for asking the boy to delete the messages, and 3 counts of criminal sexual contact. She was booked into the Monmouth County Correctional Institution. The superintendent of schools sent out a letter to parents letting them know that Rizzatello was being criminally charged. And in the letter, she wrote, quote, "We recognize these matters have an impact on the entire school community, especially our students. I ask that you be mindful of our students' well-being during this difficult time. If you believe your child, or if you know of a child that is in need of support, please consider reviewing the mental health resources available on our website. As always, the safety and well-being of our students remains our top priorities as we navigate recent events." We looked up Julie Rizzatello on truthfinder.com, and we were able to see her truth finder 2017. According to that student, their so-called relationship lasted from 27 January 2018, and it took Rizzatello's home. This is a 37-year-old woman. So on July 16th, she went to court where she was hit with additional sexual assault and witness tampering charges. Now that Rizzatello has pleaded guilty, sentencing is scheduled for January 9th of next year, and the Monmouth prosecutor's office is seeking some penalties. According to a news release on Rizzatello's conviction, the state said it plans to recommend a sentence of 10 years in state prison. They also want her to register as a sex offender, have parole supervision for life, and permanent forfeiture of public office.
As she should, right? She should not be able to. She should not have to register, right? Otherwise, she will be able to have access to children. Although I don't believe they would allow her that with an SA charge, even if it wasn't against children. But she shouldn't have access to work in that field at all. At all. So let's continue.
Wall Township Chief of Police Sean O'Halloran spoke to the Co-Star newspaper after Rizzatello entered her guilty plea, and this is what he said, quote, "The actions of this former teacher represent a betrayal of trust, not only to the victims, but to the entire school community. I commend the courage of those who came forward and the dedication of our officers and partner agencies in bringing this case to justice. Protecting our youth is among our highest priority, and we will continue to work tirelessly to ensure that criminals are brought to justice to safeguard our residents and guests." Now, Rizzatello will learn her fate on January 9th of next year. It's not the only case, though, that we have seen in New Jersey recently, a high-profile case of a teacher allegedly targeting her students. In fact, it's not the only one going on in Monmouth County. A Monmouth County grand jury indicted special ed teacher Allison Haveman Niedrich, a married mom of 2, on 7 counts in March of this year. She's accused of aggravated sexual assault in the first degree, sexual assault in the second degree, 2 counts of endangering the welfare of a child, a count of endangering the welfare of a child by manufacturing child pornography, another for possession of child pornography, and official misconduct. There was also a sentencing enhancer because Haveman Niedrich was an employee of the school when she allegedly committed these crimes. Now, according to prosecutors, Haveman Niedrich, who is a teacher at Freehold
This is just disturbing. My goodness.
Intermediate School, was having sex with an 8th grade student who she was, quote, reportedly obsessed with. She's accused of filming the sex acts as well as texting the boy thousands and thousands of times. Body camera video shows her arrest in June 2024.
Good evening. Yes. Detective Hernandez, Freehold Borough Police Department. Is Allison home? Yes. May I speak with her, please? Now we'll talk to her out here. Thank you. Hey, Michelle, how you doing? Hi. Detective Hernandez, Freehold Police Department. Detective Correa, Detective Hobbs. You know why we're here? No? Any idea? You want to move away from the house to speak to?
I don't feel comfortable talking about my attorney present.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
We have a warrant for your arrest, so we're gonna take you in. Is there anything on you that you want to leave with your family?
No, my glasses come with me. Do I have medication that I need to bring with me?
If you take medication, I will highly suggest for you to have someone get it for you. Okay, just give me a second.
I don't have a phone. It got destroyed, actually. I lost it today and got run over.
Haven Manidra claimed her phone had been run over that very same day. Quite a coincidence, given what prosecutors say was on it.
I don't have a phone. It got destroyed, actually. I lost it today and got run over.
Okay. Just have them bring the medicine.
Okay.
Here, I gotta put you under cuffs, though.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah. My joints are very fragile.
I'm not gonna hurt you in any shape or form. This is gonna go on gently. Right? Still good?
Thank you.
Okay?
Okay.
Give me a second.
My husband's here with my kids.
Okay. Thank you, and I see your parents there.
Yeah, my parents are here. They're fine. My kids are safe.
All right. Do me a favor, go like this.
I do have a lot of medical issues. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Outlet Jersey Shore Online reported that other teachers saw Haven Manidra interacting with the boy inappropriately, doing things like rubbing his neck and back, touching his leg, describing the actions as, quote, flirty. Now, according to an indictment, the 15-year-old told friends that he was dating the teacher, but when confronted by police, he tried to insist he was actually dating the teacher's daughter and that her mom never did anything inappropriate. But the 25,000 text messages, think about that number, 25,000 text messages between the two showed something very different. His mom took him to the police station where he apparently confessed to what was going on. Haven Manidra has been on home.
Yeah, just sickly. Very sickly, guys. All right. That's all I got for you guys tonight. Hopefully we're a little bit more aware of what is going on. Now, I don't know if this is just a major influx again in the country or if this is a major influx in prosecution. So we'll see how some of these progress over time. Obviously, there was a few that are still very early in the stages of investigation. And so we'll give it time to be proven. But nonetheless, this is so disturbing, right? Very, very disturbing. We should be very aware of who's spending time with our children, whether they be boys or girls, right? The danger is out there for both. All right, hopefully you all enjoyed the show. We'll be back with another one later this week. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Let me send you off with some music. Thank you very much.
Florabella on my screen. Her smile, it shines so bright. She's a queen with every scene. In the morning or the night. Recipes and good vibes flow. Every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora. She's got that power. Spreading her aura. Blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. With every like and every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong, she can't bear. She's setting us all free. Unstoppable Flora. She's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Recipes and good vibes flow. Every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora. She's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. energy. No storm too strong, she can't bear. She's setting us all free, unstoppable flora. She's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she